Hi, this is Kevin, and this is a presentation about modals or modal verbs, which we are going to start studying this week, which is chapter 7 in our textbook. Okay, so let's get started. So first, modal verbs, and I will show you this. These are helping verbs like may, might, could, would, should, be, about to, those types of helping verbs. Okay, and in English, these are used for two things, right? One is for probability, which means making predictions about actions that we're not sure about. So, if you remember the last 2 weeks, we studied tense and aspect, and tense and aspect are used for talking about the time, and aspect is used for actions that are facts or describing the form of the action. But when we want to talk about actions that we're not sure about, sometimes we use modals, right, to make predictions or guess about what's reality when we don't know the 100% for sure what the fact is. But modals are also used very often for some type of social use, and by that I mean when we need to ask permission for something or make a request, give advice, say that we need something, or try to be polite, show our intention, or make a suggestion. Right? These types of things we often, in English, we use these modal verbs. All languages have some type of, in linguistics, it's called modality. You don't need to remember that. But all languages deal with this type of, uh, you know, thing when we talk about making predictions about actions we're not sure about, or when we need to ask permission, make a request, or give advice, or be polite. Many languages use some type of modality to do that. Sometimes it's an adverb. Like in Japanese, I think it's very often adverbs. Japanese doesn't have modal verbs like English. Um, and English also uses adverbs sometimes, like maybe and probably. So all languages do this in one way or another. But in English, we have what are called modal verbs. Okay. So let me give you a couple quick examples. It may rain tomorrow. Okay. This is like maybe 50% sure, right? We're not 100% sure. But we could also say something like, may I leave the classroom? Right? And now in this sentence, the speaker is asking permission. Of course, the speaker has the ability, they can get up and leave, they can, but they want to be polite and they're asking for permission, right? It's probably a student who's asking this. So here, this may has a social, he's using it, he or she is using it for a social purpose. Here, the speaker is using it to make a guess about the future. Okay. More examples. He didn't answer his phone. He must be sleeping. So here the speaker has some evidence, right? His friend didn't answer the phone. So he's thinking, well, he didn't answer his phone, so he's probably sleeping. He must be sleeping. He's pretty sure, but not 100%. But also, I'm sure you can imagine a sentence like this, right? Chubu students must beep into class with their ID cards. Here, this is not making a guess. This is telling like a rule, right? You need to beep into class. So the same modal can be used for in two different ways, two different uses, or they have two different meanings. So that's where it gets a little bit confusing. Okay. In English, we have two types of modals. Okay, we have one-word modals. One-word modals are just one word, and they don't need to connect to a verb with to, the word to. So for example, need to see, like to eat. One word modals don't need to. You don't need to remember this, but these one word modals or real modals come from a long, many hundreds of years ago, regular verbs. But over time, the grammar changed. And now these modal verbs, we can't change them to show tense, and we can't add uh, an S to the verb like needs. We can add an S to needs, right? But modal verbs, we can't change them like that. So these are now helping verbs. They're a different type of verb. Okay. But we also have phrasal modals. A phrasal modal is just it's the same. It's very similar to a modal verb, but it's more than one word. So it has 2 or 3 words in it, and they often have the word to, right? They often have the word to at the end. And when these are spoken, the to is not pronounced clearly. It's often connected or relaxed in pronunciation into the word before it. So, for example, going to often sounds like gonna. I'm gonna go to the store. Or I gotta go to the store. I got to. I had or she has to go. She has to go to the store. I have to go to the store. I have to go to the store. Right? So often the to is relaxed. It sounds like have to, right? And these ones have developed more recently in the grammar than real modals. And because sometimes speakers still want to show the tense or the aspect, right? So these are useful because they share a meaning, a similar meaning to one of the one-word modals, but we can still change them to show tense or aspect. So what do I mean? Well, let's take a look. Here, this might not be all the modals, but it's almost all of them. So here's real modals on the left. Words like can, could, will, shall, must, should, would, may, and might. And then over here on the right, we have phrasal modals. So, and on the same line, you can see that can and could is used to talk about ability, right? I can speak English. I can also say I'm able to speak English. So there's usually phrasal modals that have a similar meaning to real modal, right? So I put these on the right side, the ones that are very similar. Okay, so you can take a look at this later. Yeah. So next, the rule for modals is very easy, right? In English, we always have subject, verb, and then the object or the rest of the sentence. In this sentence, we don't have an object, but the modal always comes before the verb, and the verb is always in the base form. So here in this example, she can go to Tokyo next week, right? Or she may go, she might go. She is able to go. She is supposed to go. She has to go, right? The modal always comes here, and the verb is always in this form. The verb doesn't change. So it's really easy, actually, right? So maybe you're thinking, wow, modals, not so scary after all, right? The form is very easy, okay? Like I said, it's the subject plus the modal verb and then the base form of the verb. No problem, right? So I don't think anybody will make mistakes with this. This is usually not a problem, especially for Japanese speakers. Usually my Japanese students don't have any trouble with this. The problem comes with the meaning and the use, right? These can be confusing, especially if you're not sure. Maybe you know one, but you're not familiar with another way to use it. So those can cause problems. And this is because the same modal usually has more than one use or more than one meaning. And like I said before at the beginning, these can be used for prediction and social use. Okay. So that's basically modals, right? Now we will be studying these 2 weeks. And we have 5. My goal is to cover 5 things. This week, we are going to practice listening for modals in natural speech. Modals are usually pretty easy to understand, but when speakers are talking at a normal or a fast speed, they can sometimes be hard to hear. So we'll practice that. And then this week, we're going to use could to make suggestions, and we're going to use modals to give advice. And then next week, we will be using modals to be extremely polite and also talk about necessity. Okay, so that's the goal for these 2 weeks. You have a couple textbook activities and online activities, so good luck with that. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for listening.